I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer voiced his support for the Wildfire Response and Drought Resiliency Act on the House floor Friday. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the legislation, quote, would authorize projects to mitigate the risks of drought and wildfires. Hoyer promised that the bill is, quote, a step to deal with the extraordinary consequences of climate change that is afflicting our country.
Madam Chair, in September of 2020, as the El Dorado fire raged through California Big Bear, hotshot firefighter Charlie Morton said to his loved ones what he always said when there was a fire in the area: I've got to protect my mountains. Hotshot, like Morton, serve in the vanguard. They're tasked with making the area safe for other firefighters to operate. As one hotshot explained, we do not get to turn around and walk away. I am hopeful that the Congress today does not turn around and walk away. This bill is a step to deal with the extraordinary consequences of climate change that is afflicting our country. Yes, it's the west of our country, but it's afflicting us all, in particular the West. Firefighter Morton knew his work was extremely dangerous, but he did it anyway, because he believed in the importance of protecting our nation's forests and the communities they sustain. On September 17, 2020, backed into a corner by the encroaching flames, Morton laid down his life in defense of that conviction. It's a noble sacrifice, but one that no one should have to make. Much like Morton and his fellow hotshots, America cannot afford to turn around and walk away from the issue of wildfires. We must do everything we can to ensure that other brave firefighters do not have to give the full measure of their devotion, as Morton did. That's why I am proud to serve as co-chair of the Congressional Fire Service Caucus and to bring this wildfire response and drought resiliency bill to the floor today. Exacerbated, as we know, by the climate crisis, parts of the American West are experiencing their worst drought in 1,200 years. And this is fueling deadly and damaging wildfires affecting millions of Americans. These disasters, Madam Chair, tear through communities and inflict untold destruction and grief. This issue doesn't just affect those living in the West, however. As I've said, the effects of drought and wildfires cost our country tens of billions of dollars each year. We all pay a price. Not the price that Morton paid, but we pay a price. To my friends on the other side of the aisle who constantly deride our attempts to address the climate crisis as too expensive, I would remind them that the cost of inaction in the form of more frequent, more severe fires, droughts, and other natural disasters is far greater. From time to time, I quote a former governor of our state, Ted Agnew, who in his inaugural address in 1967 on the east front of the Capitol of Indianapolis, where I was just entering as a new state senator, he said, the cost of failure far exceeds the price of progress. That's true here. We must not fail, and we must respond, and we must respond effectively. This legislation would help us prevent and fight future wildfires by making investments to support our firefighting response and to protect vulnerable communities from wildfire. This bill, for instance, would establish a minimum basic pay of roughly $20 an hour for our wildland firefighters and ensure they have access to other benefits, such as at least 1 week of mental health leave. Additionally, this legislation will authorize a 10-year national wildfire response plan, building on actions already taken by the Biden administration, and it will expand the role of tribes and conservation corps programs in reducing wildfire risk. This bill, Madam Chair, also includes $500 million in federal funding for programs to preserve key Colorado River reservoirs, an absolutely critical objective of us all. Tens of millions of Americans rely on that water. All of these provisions will help us build on the progress we made with the fire and drought prevention measures included in the bipartisan infrastructure law, which included close to $17 billion for wildfire and drought prevention and response. As an aside, Mr. Chairman, I'm told that some say this is an authorizing bill. It is an authorizing bill. That's regular order. It will be our responsibility then to appropriate the funds that are necessary to carry out the objectives of this bill, and I hope we can do so in a bipartisan way. I want to thank House Natural Resources Chairman Raul Grijalva for his leadership, Mr. Neguse, ranking member as well, and for the work that they have done. Whether they agree or not, there has been joint work on this bill. Chairs David Scott, Frank Pallone, Eddie Bernice Johnson, and Carolyn Maloney for their committee's contributions. We can take meaningful action to address these wildfires and drought by voting yes on this bill. Although Charlie Morton, Madam Chair, perished in the El Dorado fire, his courageous efforts and those of his fellow firefighters made it possible to extinguish ultimately the flames. They were able to protect Morton's mountains, including a pristine meadow now named in his memory. They did their part to defend our forest and our communities. Today, Madam Chair, we must do our part. I yield back.